So before we get into like the nitty gritty, I want to introduce you to the audience. For those who don't know, HRH Princess Diandra. She is you're like I think of you as old school New York. You're a drag queen in New York, and you've been around since like the club kid day. Is that horrible to talk about the club kids? I know people have like people
I was never one of them, but I kind of navigated in and out of that scene.
Yeah,
I never was an official club kid, but I was in New York in the that would be the later 80s. It's after 5. We were kind of the first group of drag queens that made drag respectable. Like, I remember before I became a drag queen, it was like, oh, she's a drag queen, oof. And it would be the mumbles. And then once I got to know drag queens, I'm like, oh, that's so horrible. What's the shade about? So then when I became a drag queen, it was Connie Girl and Glamour and Shannon and a few others.
Yeah.
And then we just became these, like, we ruled New York City. And it was just a handful. Lady Bunny came around that time. And it was just us, like, ruling the city for quite a while. Until that RuPaul reared her head and became famous. And it was like somebody poured water on gremlins. And there they were. Hesitant and bitches everywhere. Well, you know, it was another horrible drag queen. But we just were like the corner. There were like literally like 10 to 12 of us that were like working in the scene throughout the city until, you know, that supermodel came out.
Well, so can we talk about that? Because, okay, I've never met Ru. I've never met RuPaul. And I always thought, because again, I've never been a drag queen, and I've really never been like a part of that circle, like that world, you know what I mean? Like I never like hung out, like I never hung out at Lucky Chang's or all of that. So I've always been it's always been like on the periphery for me. But I remember in like the early 90s when RuPaul kind of became RuPaul, because I was young then, but I remember like supermodel of the world, Shante, and like all of a sudden,
yeah, I was young then too. Probably older than you, but still young. Go on.
But I remember when like he became it, and then he had like his VH1 show, and then he like disappeared, and now he's like created this like cottage industry. And what is because I've talked to certain people, and there's people who think it's like wonderful because he's like made drag mainstream, but then there's other people who are like, oh my God, no one liked that bitch back then, and now like what is your take?
I don't have anything against RuPaul. Like, we were very, very good friends, like, but then I haven't spoken to her in 20 some odd years. But I had a friendship with her. She's been to my home. I let her copy all of my Diana Ross tapes because she also has this infatuation with Diana Ross. And even more than me, because I'll call.
Is that possible?
Behavior. She ain't Jesus Christ to me. She's a woman with many, many flaws in the 20s. I was never one of those glassy-eyed fans. I saw the shade. I was on the receiving end of the shade.
What do you call it? You always post about her, but you don't call
it
Frosty.
She's not warm and fuzzy. She's very cold and bitchy.
I always think when you see her, because like she does like the and I think she's so fucking amazing. But like you see her and like she has like in Connecticut, and she has like her Christmas photos with all of her children. And I remember like when Oprah was leaving and she came on Oprah and like the kids did the thing. I always picture her like beating the kids, like, okay, you better do this or I'm going to kill you. And I think she's amazing.
I would imagine that the children don't see, or at least they must have seen it. But I mean, I don't think that frostiness is reserved for the children. I think the children get the warm, incredible side of her because they've all turned out so incredible, without scandal, without show. So that's a testament.
That's a very valid point. Like, none of them have drug problems. None of them have.
Well, I heard.
But publicly, like you didn't hear. Oh, Diana Ross's kid was like picked up on a DUI.
I heard one of them had a little problem, but it was fixed. It was only hearsay. I've never got high with the child, so I don't know. I'm not spreading those out. So
What happens? What happens in
and
Greenwich?
one of the kids got a little wayward, and they honed him in.
What happens in Greenwich
One of them.
stays in Greenwich. That's what I said.
Or LA or New York or wherever they were scoring.